Start the recording.
All right,
recording
we'll start this meeting of the Ohio City Design Review Committee on October 21st, 2021. Present, we have myself, Doug Wall, Alex Frondorf, Antonia Marinucci, and who else? Anybody else?
And that's
here,
it.
Don? Okay. Now, Donna, let's call the first item.
Yes, sir. So we have 5100 Lorain. Do we have the presenters for this here? Going once, going twice. Do we have 4617? I think Mr. Palace and his team.
I'm here.
Yes.
Okay, I guess we can start with this one then, since the other applicant is not on.
All right.
Just let me know when you'd like to go to the next slide or what you'd like me to pull up.
All right. So this, as you see the description of work, it's located here at the corner.
Oh, and sorry, can you please introduce yourself as well?
I'm sorry. I'm Bud Perry. I work for Arkinetics Architecture, and Eugene Palace is the building owner.
Great.
So we were contracted just to look at the building itself, no site or landscaping at this point. So the current Lorain facing storefront was old and had a single entrance. Mr. Palace has divided the building into two. You can see there, that's the side. The old elevation, it only had the one entrance into the one space. Yeah. And he has divided the space into two tenants, one of which will remain Lorain Furniture and the other of which is a social working, I believe, tenant.
And are they there now?
They are currently there.
Okay.
So are you asking for permission? Are you asking for forgiveness? It sounds like you've gone ahead and done this already.
The work has been completed. I was very careful on here not to put existing and proposed. It's old and new elevation.
Okay. We've had a lot of these come before us, and I'm sorry to tell you, but I'll be making a motion to deny the certificate of appropriateness and to ask that you put it back the way you found it. We cannot have a historic district if everyone who comes before us is simply asking for forgiveness and doing it and then trying to go through the process. So I don't know how my other two committee members find, but you need to put it back the way you found it.
If I may, this plan was already approved by the storefront renovation program a year ago. I just couldn't finish the process with them, so I just went ahead and did it. So this was reviewed by the city, and
but sir, was it approved by the city? You may have put it through the storefront renovation program, but it doesn't sound like it was approved by that, nor did it come to this committee nor landmarks.
It was approved. I pulled out at the very last moment. There was just more of like the labor issues that I was having, and it wasn't the design part.
Who did you work with as a storefront specialist there?
Terry Sandy and Dan Musan, I believe.
Yeah, Musan.
Carl, can you provide some background as to the history with the storefront renovation program?
I have no idea. This is the first time I was seeing this myself. It never came through any review process that I am aware of. I know that there was a violation notice for work being done without a permit back in May, and that they filed for their permits at the end of August of this year, and it was only routed to us on the 13th of September. So whether or not this went through a storefront renovation program, I can't say yes or no. But I think we
There
would
was
need
no
more
construction
information.
permit applied for or issued for this work then.
So if I can interrupt, I do have, we did talk to Terry Sandy about this briefly, but I don't know how far it went in the process, but she did say that Mr. Palace did apply for SRP, but he withdrew his application in December.
You did not complete the process with SRP, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. I don't know. We have four other items on our agenda. I don't know what more is left to discuss.
You have anything on the side elevation that you want to talk about? Because there's the new entrance that was put in the back, I believe, as well.
This work has also been done already?
Yes, sir.
All stands permit.
And to be clear, we were brought in a little over a month ago or 2 months ago, post work. So we were catching up with drawings.
So at that point, you were engaged to do as-built drawings.
Correct.
So then question to Mr. Palace. Who was your contractor that was willing to do this work without permits?
I hired a company called Advanced Door Company. And there was a bit of evidently confusion either on my end or their end. They indicated to me that they did not need a permit to change windows. Turns out that's not correct. The side elevation, I did know I needed a permit. I did have drawings done a few years ago, but I don't have any excuse. I did not pull a permit for that before the work was done.
So as of this point, your status is that you have applied retroactively for a permit to get this work approved. Is that correct? There's a pending permit in the city building department?
That is correct.
I am most troubled by the removal of a historic storefront without going through the proper process. We have a historic district to protect these buildings for future generations. We are but caretakers of them for a short period of time. We cannot continue to condone and to allow applicants, and I apologize, sir, that you're in this situation, but we cannot condone and allow this to continue where people come and ask for forgiveness and not permission to allow the work that needs to be done to occur in an appropriate, historically appropriate fashion. And the storefront needs to be put back to the way it is seen in that picture. It needs to be put back.
If I may, sir, this storefront that you're looking at, the old version, there's absolutely nothing original about that. That was done back in the 70s when the previous owner of the furniture store simply removed an existing door and made only one entrance instead of the two. If you see on the left side of the main door, there's a piece of plywood blocking what was the original door. I mean, I'd like to make the argument that I restored the building more so to its original build than what it was previously.
That was kind of my question, is that if you have do we have historic photos? I definitely agree with Alex in that it's a very difficult position to put us in when the work is done prior to going through the process and having a permit. And I'd also like to add that if you had completed the storefront renovation program, this is the approving body. So you can't really get approved by storefront without having our stamp of approval on it. But if the case is that you are restoring it to the original facade on that front, we need a lot more documentation. So do you have like historic photos, photos of what it looked like prior to the work being done, photos of what it looks like now, beyond just kind of these as-built renderings or drawings. Is that possible? I mean, can you come back with more?
I
That?
will if that's what you want. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, because
I think that would be a
when you
lot
say
more
this
helpful
was-
to your case.
when you say this was remodeled in the 70s, I think not the whole thing. The transom glass and the transom rails are all wood. Those would predate the 70s. Nobody was building things like that in the 70s. So that's probably the biggest crime I see in what you've done is you obliterated the original transom and its pattern. Even if there was a door, a second door there at one time. Let me ask you another question. Is it looks like there was a ceramic tile on the bulkhead panels there below the storefront glass, or was? Is that still there? Did you retain that?
No, that's still there. That's all that's been saved. I literally just changed the glass and the framing of the glass.
All right. Well, I agree with Antonia that we might consider this with some possible alterations, but we'd like to see more evidence of what this looked like historically, going back further in time, number one. Secondly, I think pictures of what it looks like, photographs of what it actually looks like today, now that this thing has been installed, instead of just the drawings, because it's obviously there now. And then we can discuss more intelligently whether we might approve this, as it was built, or, ask that you make some alterations to it in some way. So in that vein, would you be willing to consider tabling this until you can come back with more information?
Just a point of order, there's a motion already on the table, and I think you need to have that withdrawn or seconded. Alex, are you willing to withdraw your motion?
Yes, I will do that so that you can gather more historic evidence. I agree with Doug. That was my initial reaction, was that the transom above it was wood, that is original to the building. And the whole point of this committee and landmarks and the historic district is to preserve things and elements like that on our historic structures.
And then so to the applicant, sorry, Donna, do you want me to?
No, I wanted to say, I think Eugene came to us on his own. I just wanted to comment that I don't think, I don't know, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate also. I do think it's a problem in the district that people have been coming to the committee with the work being done already. And that puts everyone in a very awkward spot. But a lot of those business owners or people that have done that work, a lot of time are presenting because they've been bugged by our office or Landmarks Commission to do so. And I will say that this came to us seemingly proactively. So just take that into consideration.
So yes, I'd like to feel that we can give the owner the benefit of the doubt that he didn't know, although I have some difficulty believing that he pursued the storefront program far enough to have some design work done, and nobody made him aware that this was an historic district that required this level of review and approval. But I do appreciate that you come to us proactively on your own, and so I'm willing to look at more information if you can provide us more information.
I have another to add on to Doug's. I fully agree with when we're dealing with the primary facade. In terms of the openings on the side of the building, our focus and priority is always going to be that front facing facade. But since you have a corner building right now, maybe eventually that lot will get developed or whatever. I'm not opposed in general to modifications to it, but same thing. Can you please provide photos of what it looks like now? Also, my kids go to school next door, and I'm trying to think of what it looks like in the morning. how is that, those new openings affecting the parking lot? Did you make other site adjustments to?
The entire parking lot was paved with a permit bold, of course, and there's landscaping and fencing around the parking lot. So basically that side entrance opens up into my new parking lot.
Okay.
I think part of the question is, if you created these new openings, did you have to block out some parking spaces? Do you have access to the doors so people aren't parking in front of the doors? And
There's no parking on that entire side of the building. There's only 7 spaces total in my parking lot. The first 40 something feet of the lot there is actually just stamped concrete. I wasn't allowed to put any parking within 40 feet of Lorain Avenue. So I just made that a patio.
Okay. The city will, I'm sure, also be, building housing is also going to be concerned with entrances opening to a parking area. So maybe a site plan would be helpful to document how it's actually functioning now.
yes, in addition to photographs, have your architect prepare a site plan that shows what's there and how that interacts with the building alterations.
And making sure that you're documenting like the existing building material that was cut into, any structural elements that are visible, like, you know, the structural mechanisms, like, is it steel lintels? Which I'm assuming you might be able to just do through photo documents now that it's already done, but just more clarity on, like, you know, typically we would require more detail and construction methods for penetrating the building like that.
Yeah.
We did provide on the floor plan, we did provide what lintels they used, or in the floor plan set, I should say. It was a 3-page set. Because we had that from their original drawings, had called those out. I didn't provide a current site plan, only because we weren't involved in that either.
Oh,
there's
sorry,
another photo.
I didn't realize this was here from 2021.
Oh.
So we do have a little more recent information.
Thanks, Carl, for that tip. The default one was the one I was showing.
Are you in control of the whole building, Eugene?
I am.
Okay. I will also add, like, you know, I'm not opposed as a member of this body to modifying these historic structures to do something like accommodating a second tenant. I don't, you know, if we're looking at like sustaining the health of the businesses on this corridor, I'm not opposed to that. I just would like to see the historic documentation so that we can best judge what the modification is and if it's appropriate.
I definitely will do that research, but if you look on the left storefront, and if you kind of look in the stairwell, you'll see that original, how it continues in, you know, just kind of further showing that was an original opening, you know, when the building was new back in 18 whatever. So I mean, I just simply replaced the door that was removed at some point in, you know, I don't know when, but you know.
Right, and there's nothing, buildings have to change from time to time and bring things back, but we would in all likelihood not have allowed the demolition of the historic wooden transom. There would have been ways to accomplish the needs that you have for the building while preserving the historic storefront, or at least the majority or substantial portion of those elements. And that's the problem that we face, is those historic elements are now gone. I presume that they were in a dumpster somewhere. And if, you know, the frustration you're hearing is because you are not the first and you will not be the last to come before this body making this request for post, you know, after the fact construction on a historic building. And we just, there will be nothing left if we condone this, if we continue to allow this to occur. You know.
So let me inquire, now that we have this picture of what's there, a little bit further about that new entrance that you added. You say you kept the footprint of the original entrance the same as it was. So it looks like the bulkhead panels, the tile continues down the sides of the entry recess. And it looks like the same tile exists on the entrance that you've added or restored, as it were. So was that something that was there, or did you match the tile going back into that recess, or was it there buried all the time?
That's all original. What happened is that sometime back in the 70s, when they removed that door completely, they simply built a stage over the entire entrance, keeping it all intact. And then they just put a piece of plywood in front of the very front piece between the stoop and where the windows were. But that's all original. It's all there.
So the concrete stoop and the dimensions profile of that recess were all there. It was just buried. You uncovered it.
Correct. That is correct.
All right. Well, that works in your favor because that shows that something was there that you didn't create that hadn't been there previously. So that's good to know. And
Yeah,
so
I think you have some evidence already that you just need documentation for.
So yes, if you can find, any photos of what the building looked like originally with the two entrances, or sometime before the second entrance was taken out, then we can, look at this more intelligently, make recommendations accordingly.
Okay. I could do that, and then we could just reschedule when I get that information.
Yeah, just let me know when you have it. And typically to be on the committee or on the design review, you would have to send me that information at least a week prior to the meeting. But just keep in touch with me, and I can try to just make sure that you're on without having to delay.
Excellent.
So would somebody
Thanks.
like to make a motion to table?
I will make a motion to table with the recommendation that it be brought back to the committee within 4 weeks.
Second?
I'll second.
All right.
All right, Doug Wall,
Aye, yes.
Antonia Marinucci,
Aye.
Alex Frondorf.
Aye.
All right, so you have been tabled, and let me know if you have any questions, Eugene, or your team. Happy to help however I can. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have Mr. and Mrs. or Mrs. Hovis here?
Yes, I'm here, David.
Awesome.
So
you want to talk about, if you want to present, if you want to introduce yourself, I guess we already know you're the homeowners.
Well,
so.
go ahead and flip to the next slide for me if you don't mind. We have lived in this house since 2010. We bought it in 2010 after a fire on the house next door, which moved over and damaged this house. We bought it in the fire damage condemned condition, did a full gut rehab and energy retrofit, and have been living there since October of 2010. As I mentioned, we did you can sort of see the picture on the right is actually kind of an old picture because it's not even the completed state of the house but it shows the side very nicely. So I still use it. The left is the condition we bought the house in. So everything's been great for the last 11 years here, except we've been losing shingles off and on since 2019. We had been looking into putting solar on the house as a part of extending the energy efficiency aspects of this. But because of the losing shingles, kind of made that a bit of a problem. So we need to do something about the roof. So what we would like to do, you're going to move down to the next slide. A couple of things. One, apparently the shingles we put up there, we have now been told by several roofers were among the worst shingles ever made. So they need to go. We did get somebody up there and repaired them, and then we just lost more shingles. couple other notes. It is also, as you know, as you can tell, a very high and very steep roof, and it's really hard to get anybody to do any work on this roof. So we would like to, next slide, fix this in a more permanent fashion. And to that end, my view, and mind you, I'm a materials engineer, is the correct answer is we should put a standing seam metal roof up there. It will be durable, it should be attractive, and it's also the best choice if we're putting solar up there. So, so the plan is a standing seam metal roof with the striations in it, just as this panel is shown in the burnished slate color. I think you guys probably know what standing seam metal roofs look like, so it's going to look like one of those. You know, next slide. Sort of, I'm not an architect. I took an elevation we had from our renovation, just sort of indicated that's the, you know, sort of where the standing seams would be. Something along those lines. Next slide would show as a layout we have proposed here for the solar panels. So it'd be on the south facing side of the roof. We expect we'd be able to offset about half of our electric usage with these solar panels. So that is our proposal here. I don't know. I guess I'm here to get feedback.
Could you go back to that pair of photographs that showed the before and the after of the side elevation?
Yeah.
Thank you. So one of the things we look at with rooftop solar panel installations is what is their impact on the exterior appearance of the building. And I was a little concerned when I saw how far forward that front group of panels came towards the edge of the roof. Fortunately, you have that dormer in the front and a little hip going up from the corner that those panels will be set back, but near the roof. I guess I'd like to know how far back from the top ridge line there at the front gable, how far back is the first group of solar panels from that fascia?
I mean, they're going to be fairly close to that, the little triangular peak up there from that, because that's where you need to start them. You know, there's only so much roof space up there that's suitable for panels. So we would probably run them all the way up. We would want to run them all the way up to the front, because otherwise, you know, you're sacrificing, you know, power that way.
Yeah, like Doug said, we have to look at the Secretary of Interior standards on solar panels, but at the same time, you know, juggling the increasing need to be green. Is there any way to do those solar panels just aft of towards the back of that ridge line and not do it towards the front of the house? I don't know how many that would cut off.
I think the issue is you know, potentially you're gonna either, you know, I mean, I can ask them to push them back as far as they'll go with the number of panels proposed on slide 6, right? I mean, 6 is just an slide 6 is an approximation based on, you know, but that's the number of panels proposed. Now, what we're talking about is that front, the leftmost bank of panels. You know, could those be shifted over a little bit? Yeah. But I'm not sure I'm in a position to commit to specifically how far they would go, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to come all the way up to the, you know, right? They're going to, from this view, they're going to, you know, they're not going to come all the way up to that front corner.
Do you own that lot next door? Is that part of your?
We do now. We did not at the time, at the start of the renovation.
You plan on keeping it as a yard area?
For the time being, however, we have not consolidated that lot. We figure its potential someday somebody will probably end up building a house there, which may be us, it may be somebody else. In the meantime, I have children who like having a yard, so
Mhm.
It's a nice yard.
yes.
Yes. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about the installation detail they will use on these panels. For example, how far they're always gonna, it's not gonna be directly screwed to the roof. So there's gonna be undoubtedly some kind of rack or standoff mounting.
They get clamped to the, and I wish I'd taken a picture of this. They get clamped to the standing seams. That's one of the advantages of using a standing seam roof for this application, is that in fact there is then no holes necessary to be put in the roof to put the solar on, because you just clamp onto the seams.
I
That's
see.
standard practice. So that's one of the reasons for the standing seam metal roof here. So
You don't
they
need
just
extra roof penetrations for the anchors.
exactly. So so nothing that will compromise the integrity of the roof, which is kind of the point of the roof, right?
Mhm.
If you don't mind me asking, what's the anticipated lifespan of the solar arrays?
Solar panels are warranted for 30 years.
Okay.
And
Much like the roof.
presumably
Well,
the roof actually, one would hope that the standing seam roof, my hope is
longer.
it's going to last 50 years, which also means that I hope I never have to do anything with that roof again, because I'm going to turn my video on to demonstrate I have enough gray hairs. So, and I'm upside down again. Zoom always turns me upside down. I have enough gray hairs to say that this, I'm hoping this is the last roof I have to put on this house.
Sure. Well, standing seam is a long-lasting roofing material, so from that point of view, it's a good choice. I guess well, I have two questions. One is, in following up to what Alex's remark was, I think I need you to get rid of, not sure I mind some solar panels on that forward section of roof, but it's too close to the front edge of the roof. I think I would need to see at least the front two panels dealt with it some other way. And we all know that south facing is the appropriate exposure for solar, but what if you had, you have that south side dormer that comes out that has a fairly substantial triangular piece, and there's one on the far side of the house that you could make up for those panels by putting a couple of panels.
That would render the panels useless, because they would only produce power half of the day. Now we are putting in microinverters, so technically that would work. But if we weren't using microinverters, which is also common practice, right? In fact, microinverters are a little unusual, a little less common. If you did that, that would actually impede the performance of the entire array by putting a panel in there, because they're wired in series. So one panel that's now not producing actually impedes the performance. So that's, unfortunately, there's just the realities of solar is there's no use in putting them, and it's not worth the cost to put, a couple $100,000 in panels that are gonna produce, half as much electricity. I might as well just leave them off. I mean, about the best I could offer would be if we took away the panel that's closest to that dormer on the top ridge line, then you could probably shift about the whole set of panels about a half a panel inward.
What about putting the arrays, since you have that side yard there, in the backyard or on the ground there, and angle them up in a southerly fashion to catch the south light?
They would then be shaded by the neighbor's house, for one thing, and also that would either that or I'd kill all the milkweed we have for the monarchs that are growing along the south side of that house. I mean, the place to put panels is up on the roof,
Right.
Not to mention, if I put them in the side yard, then now I've rendered. Well, first off, I can't do that because that's not actually the same lot. I can't put.
Oh, right, you haven't consolidated.
It's not consolidated, so it's a buildable lot, but I can't put in a structure there. You know, otherwise we've considered putting a garage over there, but we can't. We can't just put a garage on that lot under the current circumstances, because that would involve.
Well, if you consolidate it, those issues fall away.
Yes, but then I think, unfortunately, I think I prefer to keep that as a buildable lot. You know, I think ultimately the goal would be to restore that to its the historic, where, you know, no missing house. There was a house there. It burned down in 2009. You know, eventually we'll get there.
Can you tell us what the dimension of each panel is? How wide are they? How long?
Sorry, what was Q-Peak Duo LG8 430, huh? LG8, they're big panels. I think they're like 4x8. You know, so these are not.
So I'm trying to get a sense of the scale of the panels and how it fits with the house and the roof.
I think at the end, the analysis for me anyways, in balancing the Secretary of Interior standards is going to be that the solar panels cannot be forward of the first larger dormer there, or ridge line. They can be aft of that, but they can't be fore of that. And the second thing is, I understand the value and desire to put a standing seam metal roof on and to replace the shingles, but that would be historically inappropriate for a house of this vintage and in this district. And so I would recommend replacing it with shingles, better performing shingles, and then no solar panels fore of that first ridge line there. I could go along with them after that.
That would sink this, because that would take away almost half. I think that takes away half of the solar panels. You know, it basically makes it useless.
Well, I agree with Alex that the standing seam metal roof, I have a problem with that as well, but that is pretty much completely inappropriate. This house, for that period and style, would never have had a standing seam metal roof on it. And also this striated panel, I'd like to see a picture of what that looks like in an installation instead of a little sample board. I'm concerned what that looks like. It certainly won't look like shingles, but I'm afraid it will.
It definitely will not look like shingles. The striations are there because if you do flat in between the seams, what will happen is it heats up as the roof heats up, you'll see wrinkles. So with the striations, it is better able to accommodate the heating and cooling without changing its appearance and without looking wrinkled. So it provides a more consistent appearance.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a question for our committee members. Wouldn't this house historically have had a slate roof on it? So shingles technically aren't even historically accurate.
That's correct.
No, or would it not be?
Probably. I would say there's a good case for slate roofing, but not necessarily.
So I don't know. That's just
there's a large difference between shingles are most similar to slate, and it's not even. I'm not even convinced that this would have had a slate roof. This would have been probably cost prohibitive for a house of this type at that period. But even if it did, it's not analogous to then say, well, then a standing seam metal roof is appropriate.
Sorry, I've been playing devil's advocate a little bit too much today, but
that's okay.
I think
but
that
here I am.
David, I hate to also not be supportive of a fellow neighbor and a homeowner trying to do energy improvements to their property. I do agree though with my colleagues that you just really have a very visible roof and distinctive roof, especially that the fact that the lot next door is currently empty. And totally get from the math standpoint that, you know, taking away half the panels negates the purpose of the panels. But I do feel both the solar panels and the standing seam are not, I don't see like a hardship that would.
Well, I think the standing seam, the hardship is getting anybody to work on this roof. And so I am willing to put it in it is significantly more to put up. I mean, I think it's probably around $30,000 to $40,000 to put on to get somebody to go up there, tear off the shingles and re-shingle it. And it's $50,000. It's costing us extra to go to the standing seam. This is not me cheaping out on things. This is me spending the money to do things well.
Well, I appreciate that, but it also goes, the argument.
I mean, when we gutted the house, we found huge amounts of gas light piping. I'm going to restore gas light piping to the house. No.
And that is all great. And I totally appreciate that you're willing to go above and beyond financially to invest in the house. It's just our task is to determine if something's.
But I also, as a homeowner, I want a roof that can have confidence in is going to serve its purpose as a roof.
And shingles will accomplish that goal, sir.
They haven't.
Well,
you used a shingle that was apparently.
Yeah, and I don't want to find out that the shingles I buy now turns out in 10 years are going to fall apart too. What I know won't fall apart is metal.
There are a good deal of 30-year guaranteed shingles on the market.
Yeah, and these had a guarantee, and you know how much that guarantee is worth 10 years on? Nothing.
Did you guys?
It's all prorated in a way that doesn't make it worthwhile to do.
What's your insulation method in that attic cavity?
It is, there is spray foam insulation underneath the roof deck, and then there was added on the outside 3 inches of foam board with a new decking applied on top of that. So as part of
spray foam to the rafters, to the sheathing, rigid insulation, sheathing, dimensional, the shingle.
And the shingles, yes.
I mean, that seems just
we do not, and I will tell you, we are the only house in the neighborhood that doesn't get ice dams.
No, that's great. You're doing a lot of really impressive improvements. I just think that seems like that's indicative of a failure of that particular product and not necessarily.
It is, but at the same point in time, if I put another shingle up there and it fails in 10 years, you're not paying for it. I am. You're not having to deal with trying to get workers out there to do it again. I am. I want this.
We're sympathetic to that. It's just that we are.
I don't think you are sympathetic to it, actually.
We are. We're beholden to the Secretary of Interior standards, which is what this district is federally mandated to honor. So that's our role on this board. It's not that
there are other standing seam roofs that have been put on historic buildings in our neighborhood. I mean, I didn't go around taking pictures of them, but they're there. I guess I'm surprised to hear that this is a problem. It's, some of this is just trends and what is actually best, change what perception of what's best. But at the moment, I feel that the best roofing for my house is, something that maybe wasn't available 120 years ago, but I feel like we have bent over backwards to restore this house. I don't feel I'm asking something unreasonable to put a modern, high quality and high durability product on a roof that is difficult to get people to work on. So I would like to pay people once, and then on top of it, because we also would like to put solar up there, it is also the appropriate roof material for solar. Because if I put shingles up there, then when we go to put up solar, we got to put extra holes in the roof. It takes extra care to make sure that that doesn't cause a water penetration, whereas standing seam metal roof does not have that issue. So, the combination of those two.
Okay. Well, I understand your point. I understand it very well. And I appreciate it. And I'm not just.
Keep in mind, my job, I am a materials engineer. So I am very cognizant of the different materials.
Yes.
And what is better than what, and metal is better than asphalt shingles, period, for the roof climate.
I understand, and you might very well be right. The problem that we're having is that you and I and we are applying two different analyses to the same problem. You're applying a materials engineering analysis to the problem and coming up with your solution. We are charged with applying a historic analysis to the problem and coming up with a different solution. That accounts for our two different positions. It's the analysis that we're applying. So we are charged with preserving the historic district. I know I have found, I think my colleagues agree, that a standing seam metal roof would be inappropriate in this house, in this historic district. You are welcome to take that to the Landmarks Commission and have them rule on it and issue a final order. But my motion will be to deny the application for a standing seam metal roof on this house. My recommendation in the motion will also say that solar panels aft of the ridge line of the first major dormer there would be fine, but 4 of that towards the street would be inappropriate. So I think that's the motion I will make. If there's further discussion, we can have it, or if someone wants to second that motion, we can proceed.
No, I have a couple more thoughts on that, and you know, and trying to be supportive of your proposal here. You know, I don't think any of us, you know, we're all architects ourselves. I wouldn't contend for a minute that standing seam is a longer lasting, more durable product. And we have approved standing seam roofs on some homes. And in those homes, it would be appropriate. This home,
Can you explain to me the
because
difference?
there was metal roofing 100 years ago and 120 years ago. And so on some homes, it could have been appropriate. Unfortunately, I agree with Alex and Antonia that that's not this house. And if I personally were to entertain a metal roof on this house, regardless of the Secretary of Interior standards, I would want to know that it is the least noticeable roof as possible. In other words, you know, a charcoal gray that would you know, fall into the background and would not feature itself as a standing seam roof. And you know, even more so if there were houses close by on either side that screened it off, and so it was not a feature on the house that would say, oh boy, that's the wrong kind of roof. But this house is, I'm sorry, not one of them. And so you know, if you could convince me that this would be unobtrusive and we would not notice it on the roof as being inappropriate, I would consider it. But I can't, from the information you presented, I couldn't imagine that. I don't know what, that's why I asked earlier about, you know, a photo from the manufacturer of what a larger piece instead of that just one sample panel.
I mean, there's a house over on 30, there's a house over on 38 that I meant to go take a picture of between Bridge and Woodbine that's got a standing seam metal roof with solar panels on it.
Mm-hmm.
3 blocks away in our neighborhood.
It's a new construction, so it's a different application.
Right, so those two are
It's
apples
not,
and oranges.
yeah.
The new construction we consider differently than historic.
We'll just also,
We also got our recommendation from somebody who put from the same, we're using the same construction. Mind you, it's a different historic district down in West Clinton, but same roofer, same roofing system, same solar panels. I don't know. I have to go get pictures of it, I guess. I really was not expecting this to be controversial.
Oh,
I think there's a practicality aspect to getting somebody to work on this roof is something that needs to be accommodated for. That is a challenge. This is a hard roof to get people to work on. In fact, even when we did this renovation in 2010, when nobody was doing work, we still went through 7 different roofers to get this roof done. Because it was so hard to work on, the roofers would show up and work for a day and then leave. We didn't have that problem with any other aspect of the house, but the roof, you could not get people to work on. I want this done once and I want it done effectively. I want it done permanently. I don't think it's an unreasonable thing to.
Well, David,
I don't think we're gonna have any more, sorry.
would your preference be that we act on Alex's motion, or would you prefer that he withdraws it and table it for another?
Well, the thing is, we need to get this done before I'm losing shingles. We need to pull the permit soon.
Okay, well, you're welcome to, we can proceed on Alex's motion, and you're welcome to take it to landmarks and have them roll.
Well, then that's what I'll do.
Okay, then I will second Alex's motion to deny.
All right, Donna, call the roll, please. No. Donna's muted. So, Antonio,
Oh, sorry, I was talking. Doug Wall.
no.
Okay, so deny. Alex
Deny.
Frondor.
In support of my motion, which is denying the application.
Yes, and then Antonio Marinucci.
Also deny.
And then, so Mr. Hovis, just to let you know, you did receive a denial today, but you are still allowed to go to the Landmarks Commission and present. A lot of times they side with the local design review committee, but you are welcome to add more photos and et cetera to your presentation, but I would get that into them sooner than later. And then, of course, you can always come back as well with a different proposal.
I will say, as a resident of this neighborhood, I find this very, very disappointing.
I'm sorry you don't understand our position. We wish we could be more accommodating.
Thank you. And then if you have any questions, Mr. Hovis, please reach out to me or have your wife. Happy to help answer any questions. Thank you. All right. Do we have someone here with our Bartleby presentation?
Yes, I'll be presenting for that project.
Hi, Adele. Quick question for you. Do you have the contact information for whoever is in charge of this project? Because I've reached out to a couple of people and haven't been able to get any.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you our customer's contact information. I have his phone number and email.
Yeah, if you could do that, that would be really helpful.
No problem at all.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have the presentation up. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to put up for you.
No problem.
And then please introduce yourself and talk about the project.
I'm not seeing the project. Is it loading or? There we go. Perfect. All right, everybody. I'm Adelle Wincek, and I am presenting for BNext Design, the company in charge of the signage. And today we'll be proposing a new non-internally illuminated projecting sign for Bartleby, located at 2537 Lorain Avenue. And this is going to be a restaurant supper club / bar. And we will be utilizing the existing sign bracket that is already installed onto the wall. And we will have 2 small spotlights mounted to the sign bracket to provide a soft external illumination for the sign. And the size of the sign that we are proposing is going to be 3 feet high by 5 feet wide. It will be double-sided, and this welded box will be sheeted with black aluminum, and will have polycarbonate faces to allow for possible future internal illumination if they so choose. And the frontage of this location is about 118 feet, and we are only proposing 15 square feet of signage here. If you'd like to go down to the next page, please. This is just showing a different sight line from the view of West 25th. This was requested by Carl, just to get a better view of what we're proposing here. You can scroll down, please. This is just the site plan of the location, showing the frontage of their unit here and surrounding streets. And then the last 2 pages are just context photos of the surrounding area. So if you'd like to scroll down, that'll show other adjacent restaurants and places showing the existing context that we're looking at here. Obviously, this is the Crop Bistro. That sign will be removed. We'll be utilizing that existing bracket and the hardware that's already on the building, so we won't have to mess anything with that. If you keep scrolling down, it shows to the right and left of the locations. Put a Dave's Cosmic Sub there. And I'd like to note that across the street, the supermarket and the barber college are also utilizing those spotlights for their projecting signs that they have that we are going to be using as well. And that's on the final page of the context photos.
Well, I have a couple of questions while we're on that. Your rendering shows some changes to the awnings, but you didn't describe that. Is that being handled by the owner, is contracted with someone else?
Oh, yeah, sorry, that was actually skipped on there. They are just trying to recover those existing awnings just to be plain black to go along with the sign. They're currently green. They've got some advertisements on it for Crop Bistro. We're not doing anything like that. We're just doing something clean and doing new fabric on those existing.
So your company is handling that work as well?
Correct.
Okay. And there will be no graphics, lettering, or signage on the new awning material?
No,
Correct?
no.
So you have one double face sign that's externally illuminated, and you're recovering the awning frames with black material. Is that correct?
Yes,
And
sir.
are you using the same bracket that's already mounted to the building for the crop sign?
Yes.
Well, you also made the suggestion that you're going to fabricate this in such a way that it could be internally illuminated later. You're not, I don't think we would support that, and it's not on the table now. So I would just make sure you let the owners know if they decide to take that up, they'd have to come back and see us again.
Okay, no problem. I will definitely let them know that. That's basically just to kind of leave the option open for them. If they did choose to want the sign to be illuminated with LEDs, we would use that polycarbonate face to allow the translucent light to shine through. What they're really going for right now is, as you can see in the night view, is kind of a softer lighting right now. But we could even just stop that option for the LED and, you know, just use aluminum faces instead. That's, you know, a very small change to the overall concept.
I think I'd be more comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. We can certainly do that.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll move to approve as presented then.
Do you have a second?
I will second.
All right, Donna, please call the roll. Aye.
You're
Alex?
muted, Donna.
Aye.
Sorry, I got a new
Okay.
computer and I keep, it's a little clunky for me. I'm used to a MacBook. So
Antonia?
Doug Wall, you said aye. Antonia
Yep.
Marinucci
Aye.
and Alex Frondorf.
Aye.
Thank
Hey,
you.
okay.
And unanimously approved as presented. Thanks, Adele. I will send this information over to Landmarks Commission for you as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, last but not least, do we have someone here from Blvd Group?
Yeah, hi,
Hi, Andrew.
how are you?
Good. Excited to see your presentation, and let me know what slides you'd like me to proceed.
Yeah, let's start on the second slide. I think that's just a good opener. So yeah, thanks. Andrew Arusi here from the Blvd Group, back again to talk about Franklin Yards. This time I've brought our architect, Jeff Gibbon, with me. We've got, I think, a much more robust set here to present. I had kind of talked about this a little last time, but this is the kind of a modified version or updated version of what was used to get our approvals through State Historic Preservation Office, which we do have. Again, last year in the spring round, we obtained an award of state historic tax credits. So a lot more information here, I think, just on some of the things you guys were asking about. One of the first off the bat you'll see is this rendering was modified to show window trims and frames and details around the building in the kind of darker brownish grayish color tone. Previously it was shown in a lighter tone, and I indicated that our preference was to do something like this. So there's that information. We've got all the plans and elevations here in this set. We've got details of the historic windows that will match. That is, if you go to, let's see, page, those are on page 15. And actually, maybe I'll stop here. There's some good photos here. You guys had made a request last time to see some of the historic images that we have stock of. So Jeff's taken a few of the good ones that kind of represent the buildings from different periods of time. So on the left side of the page, you've got the north, what was built as the dormitory building. And then on the right side, two different pictures of the mansion. I think one actually showing a period of time where it may have been painted. And actually the lower one is clearly an older one where you can see the former adjacent mansion that the YWCA tore down in the 1920s to build the two dormitories. And then there's also, I think, either just before that, there's some photos of existing conditions, recent or since the time that we purchased the property. Like if you go actually, Donna, up to page 8, a couple in front of it. Yeah, right there. That's a good one. You can see actually on the back of the mansion there, we exposed what was an original. It's those two pictures in the center. So we've exposed what was an original exterior porch on the mansion house. It had been enclosed in a corridor that you kind of walked past that bay window in a corridor that led as a connection point into the red building over there on the left side. And then that porch we actually found was being used as a pantry in the kitchen space. So we kind of, peeled all of that off to expose it. We'll refurbish it. It will become again a patio for one of the units, the apartment dwelling units in that building. We opened up the connection. You can see it at the edge of the page there to the red building. So that is a driveway into the central courtyard of the property, which you'll see better on the site plan. But just to give you a refresher on some of the images. But yeah, again, page 15 has the windows. So there you see at the top, existing historic window profiles. There are a few, mostly in basement windows, that still exist. So we'll be matching, since the same profile we found had been used on the building. We'll be matching all the windows in the dormitories to those. And then we have historic photos that we're using to match the 2/2 or 1/1, sorry. Windows that were originally installed in the mansion, which is what you're looking at here. I think 2 pages back, page 13, has just kind of general color tones for the roofs and then all the trim work and windows. So Jeff maybe can talk a little bit more about what we're thinking with the trim, but this is sort of the general tone. I don't know, Jeff, you want to share some thoughts?
Sure. I mean, ultimately, I think the guiding color for the exterior will be the standard colors that are available from the window manufacturer that's selected for the aluminum windows. And they all have limited selections of historic colors. And so we'll be choosing the sort of the brown that's darkest and the most neutral, sort of grayer, like Andrew said, and then using that to build the color palette for the exterior around that. I think the thinking is that all of the trim and the detailing, especially on the mansion, will be fairly neutral and fairly, homogeneous, rather than being really, the word is gingerbread in Victorian. We're not going to have a lot of different colors on it. I think we want it to be fairly simple, giving it a historic appearance, but also keeping it modern and somewhat contemporary, finding a nice blend between the two.
So are the sash and the casing trim all the same color? Is that what you're proposing?
Yes. Yeah, that, and then all of like the dental detailing on the mansion, there's and all of that. I think we'll be using a color that allows shadows to express all of that detailing so it doesn't get lost, but also trying to not introduce a 4 or 5 color paint palette to this project.
I think another thing that we asked you to show us were some more architectural details on the front porch part of the project. I think the last time didn't really have much to show us.
We did, Doug, and I was looking for that as well. I see that the closest it comes to is on page, what page is that?
I think there's an elevation towards the end.
Yeah, page, where'd it go?
Yeah, there's a zoomed in elevation on page 41.
Yeah. Can you, it's hard to tell exactly what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can kind of see a side profile of it just next to it, which if you zoomed in, but
well, there's no notations of materials or definition of the profiles there, which is kind of what I think we were looking for.
Okay.
Yeah. And just because that's one of the historic elements that you have to recreate entirely, we want to, pay careful attention to that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say we have not developed that completely. The intention that's shown in the elevations that we have on here is to take elements from the existing detailing up at the eave of the larger roof and bring those down almost exactly into the porch itself, so that the different fascia detailing, the supports, the overhang, all of those things would be replicated at a smaller scale. So proportionally, it still is the same. And so it will look like it belongs on the house, that it's always been there effectively.
Right.
Well, the way you describe your intentions, that's the appropriate thing to do.
Right.
I just think we'd like to see a little more architectural detail.
That's fair.
Following through with those intentions.
I guess so the detail's really all there. It's actually not, like, the only thing I think, in my opinion, that's not called out is what the material is, which is gonna
be wood.
But the color is in line with the trim color that Jeff was just reviewing. And again, like it probably would be helpful maybe if we had blown up the side elevation next to the front elevation. But if you zoom in, I mean, it definitely has that level of detail that Jeff's talking about, which you can see both on the elevation. I mean, if you can really zoom into that corner where it's tagged C17 on the east elevation, Donna, by any chance?
The lower right-hand side of the
Yeah, lower
page.
right. So if you keep zooming into the.
Unfortunately, I can't like scroll over, if that makes
Oh, okay.
sense.
Oh, and so
Again, I'm
if you
using my
you can
work
zoom
computer.
in tighter on the front elevation, then it's essentially the same detailing on the front as it is on the side.
I'm looking on my computer separately. So I'm trying to zoom in. Are you showing railings in that profile image on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
On the side.
And what is the elevation of the porch? Does it need railings by code?
Yes.
It does. That porch is almost 2.5 feet above grade. Potentially 3 feet.
If you get grade to within 30 inches, you wouldn't need them.
That's correct. I think it's important. What we want to try to do is maintain the historic grade around the house because there are window openings in the basement. And so we don't want to bring the grade too close up to the front of the house. And especially if you look in the historic photos, it had always been a prominent porch.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Was there railings? I'm sorry, Alex.
No, I was going to follow up with that on the railing height and whether you're doing it to the historic height or to the modern code height, because you could grandfather this in, and then for more detail on those spindles and the handrail itself.
Yeah, I think we are able to grandfather in things that exist today, but I do not think that we are able to make a case to either to the state for ANSI or to ADA that we need to install a lower railing that does not exist today to match the historic character. I think we will be able to do it in a way that looks appropriate. That certainly will be a concern. But we also want to make sure that we're following the codes as much as we need to, as much as we can.
Well, then this side view doesn't even show a proposed height, as far as I can tell. I don't think there's a dimension. It's a 36.
It's great. It would have been drawn to a guardrail height, which is 42.
Now, see, that would be inappropriate. And I think regarding getting a little dispensation from that because we don't know what was there or nothing was there, you could go to the Board of Building Standards, and I think they'd be perfectly willing to accommodate this.
That can take a long time.
Board of Building Standards is easy to get on for a simple issue like that in a couple of weeks. You know, it's not like a Board of Zoning Appeals that they have to notify neighbors in weeks. Advance notice and that sort of thing. A Board of Building Standards should be a lot simpler and shorter lead time.
Sorry, Doug. So you're saying in your experience, the building and housing will let you build something that's not to current code, but's new?
No, they'll just write you up as a violation, but you can easily appeal to the Board of Building Standards. You know, some other communities don't have their own Board of Building Standards, so you have to go down to Columbus, the state, or some other regional place. We have our very own Board of Building Standards here in Cleveland, and I've appealed many historic issues to them, and they're very accommodating.
But isn't, I guess my understanding was that was always pertaining to historic structures that were preserved. I mean, this project at large is a historic preservation project, but clearly there's no porch. It was ripped off. So we're building something that's been approved by SHPO to replicate it, but we don't. I was always told we had to comply with current code when we do that.
Yeah, well,
you're essentially putting back a historic element in a historic fashion. And so the strong preference, I think, is what Doug is expressing. And I think what they'll allow you to do is to put it back in a historically appropriate way.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's been my experience, but acknowledging that my experience when going through that process is also with residential, single family residential. So unless there's other moving parts in terms of your funding, I know there's a ton of stuff going on with this one.
Yeah.
I've actually not even gone to Board of Building Standards ever for porch height and porch railing the built landmarks usually just will send a note to building and housing, allowing for the exclusion. But again, single family, not quite this level.
Yeah, so I've been to them on many cases of historic properties where there's conflicts between historic restoration and current building codes. And, you know, to me, this is not a balcony with a 20-foot drop off the side that presents a clear danger or risk involved here. So I think they'd be willing to cooperate. Another potential way that I've and others have used before is to say, okay, we're going to build a more robust railing at a shorter height, say 30 inches or 32 inches, whatever you think looks right, whatever we can come up, and then do a very thin metal railing above it at the 42-inch height that will be less obtrusive and less noticeable.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a very good idea, Doug.
Yeah,
And this project overall is outstanding. So please, our focus on the porch, don't extrapolate from there. Well, overall, this is a fantastic project, and I'm very happy to see what you're proposing. We're just focusing on this because it's the one thing that has to be built sort of from conjecture, because we don't have the actual historic porch.
Sure. No, thanks. I appreciate the clarification there and totally understand. I think the suggestion that Doug made is probably more in line of what we want to do. I mean, we build properties and then we operate them for a long time. So what's concerning to me from a management standpoint is, you know, we've certainly had issues and we'd hate to run into issues where, you know, you end up with somebody trying to come back and sue you because they fell off your porch and they found out that you built a new railing and it wasn't to code. And trust me, it happens. So
yeah, Doug's idea is perfect. Put the historic railing and then have a thin metal bar that's obviously modern, obviously an addition, so it's not impeding on the historic quality and nature of it, but accomplishes those safety features.
And is there a certain height that you guys are familiar with, like historically was used? Because I don't think we have any drawings that would show us.
Porch railings were more in the 30 to 32-inch height range.
Okay.
Once you get bigger than that, then it kind of doesn't look appropriate.
And a lot of Italianates, it just depends, but a lot of them for the front stoop did not have railings historically, because they weren't meant to be used. They weren't there for seating. They were just a small covered entranceway.
Sure. Okay. Go ahead.
No, I just say we can go on to other things. I think I would like just to see, and I think Doug would too, just the more detail or renderings that we're able to zoom in on with more detailing on the porch.
Yeah, call out some of the pieces, parts of the moldings and so forth. You know, you're being interpretive here because we don't know exactly what the details were on the porch, but you know, show us more precisely what they are.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. I mean, again, I wish we could zoom in on that corner because you do start to see like that Jeff's actually applied an application of dental and detail to it. But
like and there are period pattern books for Italianates built at this time that you could find, I'm confident fairly easily, that would show those moldings and would show or what was prominent at that time when the house was built.
I mean, Andrew, if you have it up on your screen, you can zoom in. I'll share screen with you.
Okay.
So you're welcome to share your screen.
Yeah, I'll do that. I mean, it sounds like it may be missing some of the call out information that you guys want, but here, let me.
And this is just a small thing. I mean, we can approve the great majority of it and just ask you come back just on the porch.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Yes, if that's helpful to you, we can make a motion and approve the rest of the project with the exception of the porch that we'd like to see a little bit more information. There, that's even better.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Nothing called out or dimensioned on it.
Yeah, so we can apply some dimension and stuff. I just think that I just want to show Jeff definitely did take the time to apply like what is probably some historic application of what you see around the building. So
yes, that's terrific.
The one, the one console or horrible, people call it different things, sticking out there, that profile looks a little odd, but I might be wrong. Do you see what I'm saying there? Right where your mouse was? Yeah, right there, that piece there.
Oh,
That looks not right, but I could be wrong.
yeah, I'm not sure what that, it's a bracket?
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's the side view of the bracket on the front face.
it seems
Now
too
that looks like
funky,
it,
but
I agree with Alex, it looks like it should be a cove shape, not that square bottom coming out that way. That looks very unusual to me.
Yeah, it's meant to be in line with the detailing. A few, actually, I guess it wouldn't be there, but it's meant to be in line with the detailing on the supports for the main roof eave.
Oh. So the
Which do
brackets
that.
under the roof have that.
Yes, they do.
I tell you what, can we, I want to study this more. Can we just come back to this so we don't take up all
Sure,
your time?
yeah, absolutely,
And-
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you, my other question was, your landscaping plan looks wonderful. All the tree selections, those look great. Can you tell me though about, in the first picture, the first rendering in this deck, there's no fence around the perimeter. And I know that you're removing the chain link fence, but is it being replaced with something or not at all? Or what's the plan there?
Yeah, so that's true. You don't see the fence here, but what is shown on the site plan is more accurate of what we're, and you could see historically there was a fence just right around the perimeter, pretty low kind of ornamental wrought iron. So we're thinking of using something that's very similar, ornamental metal fence. But it is running, it is sitting on the wall as it does today. It's kind of replacing that, and then it's continuing across the front here with a landscaping bed in front of it. So
will that be a separate application, fence permit perhaps, or is that something you're seeking approval for now?
I'd be seeking approval for it now. I mean, if it needed to be a separate application for some reason, that'd be fine.
Yeah, well, like the porch, I think we'd want to see the detail of the fence, how
Sure.
it's drawn, its final material selection, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know, Jeff, do we have any photos in here of like from?
I don't know. The elevation for the fence was in the application for the parking lot to the east, but I did not include it in this package.
Yeah, okay.
But it's meant to be the same.
I think our thought was, I was trying to zoom into this photo of a fire pit that's actually from Tinnerman Lofts over at Fulton and Lorain. And I think our thought was to use the same type of ornamental fence that we have going
There.
across the front at Lorain, but I can't zoom in quite enough that you could get a good feel for it. So yeah, we can share a separate, I'm fine with that, and the porch being, kind of conditional things that we would come back for if we can get approval.
Okay.
Anyone have any further comments or questions? If not, the chair will entertain
Well, yeah,
motion.
real quick, the sign on the wall that you're putting there, is that at the corner of 32nd and Franklin?
The sign on the wall there, if
Somewhere I
can you
saw it.
advance one more page in the presentation, please.
Oh, there, it's on slide, shit, where'd it go?
That was backwards. If you go forwards, it's on
Slide 41.
yes.
Oh. Sorry. Is this it on this one?
It's the
Slide
next
41.
one, next page.
Oh, sorry, I was
Oh,
41.
here, yeah.
Yeah,
There
that,
it is.
can you just tell me
Yes.
quickly about that?
So there are two signs that we're proposing for the project. One is the upper sign, which is the one that the hand is hovering over right now, is on the entrance to the building off of West 31st Street. And that is, it appears if you zoom out a little bit on that same page, you can see it in context.
Oh yeah, over here.
Yeah. So it appears we need to build a new entrance with stairs to get up to the first floor in the elevator lobby from the parking lot. And so that's what this is. It's a terraced entrance with brick walls and steps that would go down. And on those brick walls that also have planters. Above the planters, we would be putting down a sign. It's about 42 inches wide. I did not include the dimensions here. I think that my thinking with this was, and actually Andrew, you and I didn't discuss this, whether we want to include signage approval as part of this review or whether we want to come back for that separately.
Yeah, that's your call. But one of my other questions is a close follow-up to that. So to the left of that entrance on 31st Place, there exists right now a door surrounded by stone rustication and
Correct.
a stone cornice. That's quite nice. Is that being preserved and put back as well?
It is.
It is.
So that's
Yeah,
not-
that is the exit to the existing stair,
Okay.
which is in the middle of the building. And that will be available for use as well. But the
And that's not
stair
implicated
is,
by the building of that wall with the
no,
steps.
no, not at all. If you go to page 37, there's a plan of that area.
Yep.
Yeah,
See it here.
got it.
Mhm.
Okay.
So this is that existing entry, and then this is the new porch that Jeff's talking about, which gets into this elevator lobby.
All right, and the brick that I saw that's brick on the plan, are you matching the brick that's the color of the existing building, or is that going to be just different?
We would be working within, it would need to be approved by SHPO. My guess, I get the answer is we don't know yet. I think what I would assume we would do is that we would try to match the brick for the elevator lobby addition, which is different than the brick for the original dormitory buildings, to try to make that connection seem a little more intentional, and sort of to tie it all in. I don't
Right,
think
and
that we
to
wanna
denote it
introduce
as a modern element. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we want to introduce a third color of brick to this project. I don't think we want to do that.
Okay. No, I'm on board with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to see, you can kind of see the two different bricks, so that the elevator was built at the same
Yeah.
time. So it's just a
Right.
slightly
Lighter.
shade.
And so you'd be matching that for that new wall, that new. retaining
Correct.
wall. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And those signs are not backlit or anything, correct? They're just aluminum letters.
Correct.
Well,
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say, just based on what we've done at both Tinnerman and Worthington Yards, it's an aluminum pin letter that stands off. We like to try and use like a kind of a low level uplight just to illuminate it a little bit at night. Because it'll have the address on it too, so that people know that's the building, but not an internally illuminate.
Okay.
Great.
All right, those are my questions. I'm done.
All right, the chair will entertain motions if there are no further comments.
I will move to approve as presented with the request that details for the porch and fence be presented, that those are not part of this approval, and that they come back and we just discuss those two elements.
We have a second. Antonio?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, Anna, please call the roll.
Doug Wall,
Aye, approved.
Alex Frondorf,
Aye.
Antonio Marinucci.
Aye.
All right, unanimously approved as presented without to return at a later date with the details regarding the porch and fence. So as soon as you guys can get that over to me, the sooner we can put you on the agenda.
Okay.
Sure, yeah, we'll start taking a look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.